Welcome back to the Procurement Federal Acquisition Supplement and Defence Federal Acquisition Supplements Clauses podcast. I'm Eric Marquette, and today we're diving into federal cybersecurity incident response, what contractors need to know, and why it matters more than ever. Ruby and Paul are here with me, as always. So let's start with the basics. FISMA, the Federal Information Security Modernization Act, really sets the tone for how federal agencies and their contractors approach cybersecurity. It's not just a box-ticking exercise. FISMA actually shapes the requirements that end up in your contracts, especially around incident response and compliance frameworks like CMMC.
Yeah, and I think a lot of folks underestimate just how much responsibility falls on contractors. It's not just about having a plan on paper, it's about actually being ready to respond if something goes sideways. Like, you need a real incident response plan, and you need to be able to show you're CMMC compliant, or at least working toward it. Otherwise, you could be out of the running for federal work, right?
That's exactly right, Ruby. FISMA and CMMC are both about operationalizing security, not just compliance for compliance's sake. Contractors are expected to have robust incident response plans, and those plans need to be actionable. If you can't demonstrate that, you're exposing yourself and your federal partners to significant risk.
And, speaking of plans, I remember this one simulated incident drill we ran a few years back. We had all the right documents, but when the drill started, communication just broke down. People weren't sure who was supposed to call whom or what the escalation path was. It was a mess. That really drove home for me how important it is to have clear, well-understood protocols, not just a binder on a shelf. If your team doesn't know the playbook's useless.
That actually leads right into the 72-hour rule, doesn't it? So, for significant incidents, contractors have to report within 72 hours. That's not a lot of time, especially if you're still figuring out what happened. And then there's NIST SP 861, which lays out the whole incident handling framework: identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and then post-incident analysis. It's a lot to juggle, especially under pressure.
Absolutely. The 72-hour window is strict, but it's there for a reason. Federal agencies need timely information to coordinate their own response. NIST SP 861 gives you a step-by-step process, but in practice, those steps can blur together. Identification is often the hardest part. Sometimes you don't even know you've been breached until it's too late. Then you have to contain the threat, eradicate it, recover your systems, and finally, analyze what went wrong so you can improve for next time.
And Ruby, you mentioned high-pressure breaches, like the SolarWinds incident in 2021. That was a perfect example of how these timelines can feel almost impossible. I mean, when you're in the thick of it, 72 hours goes by in a flash. But the expectation is there and you have to be ready to meet it, even if it means reporting before you have all the answers.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to say, here's what we know so far, and keep updating as you learn more. It's not about being perfect. It's about being transparent and responsive. But honestly, I don't know how anyone keeps their cool during those first few hours. I'd be running around like a headless chook.
That's why continuous monitoring and regular training are so important. You can't just wait for an incident to happen and hope for the best. Contractors need to be proactive, monitoring their networks, running drills, and making sure everyone knows their role. Coordination with federal agencies and cybersecurity authorities is also key. If you have those relationships and protocols in place ahead of time, your response will be much smoother.
Totally. And look, I have to admit, my first cybersecurity training was a disaster. I clicked on the phishing email in the simulation twice. I thought it was a test about being thorough. But honestly, those kinds of exercises are what make you better. I mean, we had a defense contractor client who took their CMMC prep seriously. They did regular monitoring, ran tabletop exercises, and when they had a real incident, they handled it like pros. It was almost boring, which is exactly what you want in a crisis.
That's a great point, Ruby. The more you practice, the less likely you are to panic when something real happens. And, as we talked about in our last episode, operationalizing security isn't just about ticking boxes. It's about building habits and muscle memory. If your team is used to working together under pressure, you'll be able to coordinate with agencies and respond effectively when it counts. Now let's talk about the legal and contractual side. Every contract is going to have specific obligations around cybersecurity incidents, especially breach notification clauses. You need to know exactly what your contract says about who to notify, how quickly, and what information to provide. If you get that wrong, you could be in breach of contract or even face legal penalties.
Right. It's not just about technical response. It's about compliance. You need clear communication channels with federal agencies and your legal counsel. That way, when something happens, you can report swiftly and accurately. And don't forget documentation. Every action you take during an incident needs to be logged. That documentation is critical for legal review and for audits down the line.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people overlook that part. It's easy to get caught up in the technical firefight and forget to write things down. But if you don't have a record, it's like it never happened. And as we discussed in a previous episode, clear contract language is your best friend when things get messy. If you know your obligations up front, you're much less likely to get blindsided.
Let's shift gears to detection and prevention. Advanced intrusion detection systems are a must for federal contractors. You need tools that are tailored to your environment. Off the shelf isn't always enough, and you have to keep everything updated. Patch management is critical because attackers are always looking for unpatched vulnerabilities to exploit.
And don't forget the human side. Simulated phishing exercises and red team assessments are great for testing your defenses. I mean, if your team can spot a fake email or handle a simulated breach, they're going to be a lot more prepared when the real thing happens. Plus, it's kind of fun to see who falls for the bait. Just, don't be like me and click on everything.
It's all about being proactive. The more you test and challenge your systems and your people, the better your chances of catching threats early. And as we've seen in recent attacks, early detection can make all the difference between a minor incident and a major breach. So to wrap things up, building a culture of cybersecurity awareness is really the foundation of everything we've talked about today. It's not just about the IT team. Everyone in the organization needs to understand their role in preventing and responding to incidents. That starts with onboarding and continues with ongoing training.
Exactly. You need a dedicated cybersecurity team, but you also need buy-in from every department: threat hunting, monitoring, incident analysis. These are specialized skills, but the lessons learned need to be shared across the organization. A feedback loop is essential. Every incident, every simulation should be an opportunity to improve your practices and strengthen your defenses.
And honestly, the more you talk about this stuff, the less scary it gets. If people know what to expect and feel empowered to speak up, you're going to catch issues sooner and respond faster. Plus, it makes the whole process a bit less dry, maybe even a little fun if you do it right.
Well, that's all we've got for today on Federal Cybersecurity Incident Response. Thanks for joining us, and remember, compliance is a journey, not a destination. We'll be back soon with more on keeping your federal contracts secure. Ruby, Paul, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Paul. Catch you both next time.
Great discussion as always. Take care, everyone.